Right, well, the question today is, should consoles just be for gaming? Are consoles just for gaming? Well, on my HDCP video the other day, I had a comment that suggested precisely that consoles should just be for gaming. But is that what gamers really want? Do they want their consoles just to be for gaming? Well, in order to look into this, I think we need to take a step backwards and look at the original Xbox. Now, this was discussed the other day on the Average Gamer podcast with Grant and Sully and myself. And Grant went into some detail about some of the options that the original Xbox offered that we have subsequently got in new consoles. And I'd like to just go over that a little bit more now. The reason being is that if you look at the original Xbox, one of the great things about it was that it had a modding community that went to town on it. And it was chipped fairly early on, and you started getting software like XBMC, which later went on to become Kodi. And if you look at Kodi today, it's available on many, many different platforms. Now, what does Kodi give you? It gives you the ability to play multimedia, it gives you the ability to play emulators, and many, many, many more options. But where did that come from? Did that come from Microsoft? Well, hell no. Microsoft didn't want that happening with the console at the time, and basically you had to chip the console in order to be able to do these things. But XBMC found its way onto the console, and basically we never looked back. So the multimedia capabilities that we got on the original Xbox came from the gamers, came from the modding community. And many people, virtually everybody I know who had an Xbox, sooner or later modded it. And I have a friend now who's just bought himself a second original Xbox just for playing emulators on, because he wants to play emulators in the front room. And it was cheaper to do that than it was to go and get himself an Nvidia Shield or something. And if you look at the Nvidia Shield, it's almost like a spiritual successor to the original Xbox in many respects, in that it offers a lot of that functionality, and you can use XBMC on it, or Kodi as it's called now. But what's even more interesting is what happened after the original Xbox, and what we got with the Xbox 360. And Microsoft had done pretty well with the original Xbox, although it hadn't sold as well as the PlayStation 2. But they wanted to consolidate with the 360. And so what did they do? Well, it seems to me that they looked at what was going on with the modding community, they looked at what was happening with XBMC, and they thought, oh, we want a piece of this. Now, there's limits as to what they could do, because obviously the modding community skirts the edge of legality and sometimes falls off the cliff. So there were things Microsoft couldn't do, like it couldn't incorporate emulators into the system and stuff like that. But we did get a lot of multimedia capability, and you started seeing things like YouTube, Netflix offered directly with the console. And then Sony saw what was going on, and we got Sony moving into that space as well. So slowly the consoles have moved towards offering more and more multimedia. And then we got to 2013 and the Xbox One was announced, and Microsoft took a step too far, didn't they? But the interesting thing there was Sony were saying for the players. They were trying to push this idea, this marketing speak, that the PlayStation 4 was all about games, while Microsoft were going in the other direction at the time. But how did that pan out in reality? Well, the reality of that was that both consoles, if you look at them now, look very, very similar in the functionality they offer. Okay, you've got the Xbox One S now that offers you HD Blu-ray playback, and the PS4, which doesn't but offers 4K gaming. And you can see there's a slight difference between the two, but then you've got the Scorpio coming next year, and who knows what's going to happen then. But the reality is that both these consoles offer multimedia as part of the package. So far from gamers only wanting their machines to be just for games, it seems that they want their machines to offer multimedia and various other options. And then if you get into gamer-centric multimedia, like Twitch, then obviously these are a natural home for those kind of apps. But obviously this is a double-edged sword, and I've covered some of this in my HDCP video. The fact is, when you start getting into multimedia, you also start bringing some of the problems that come with it, namely HDCP. And so we've got these situations now with the PS4 and the Xbox One S, the Pro that is, and the Xbox One S, where you're having HDCP issues and problems like that. And obviously, as I say, I've covered that in my previous video, so I'm not going to go into great detail now, but it does cause a problem for those people who want to use their consoles primarily for gaming. And especially if you're in a position where you're switching backwards and forwards from gaming to multimedia, then HDCP and copy protection in general can cause issues. And people like me who've been into multimedia and bought Blu-ray players and flat screen TVs and stuff for some time have had to experience these issues for a long, long time. So welcome to the party, gamers. But some gamers do seem to have taken the Sony mantra, the for the players, to heart. They seem to think that the PS4 is only about games and that consoles should only be about games. Well, I'm sorry to say this, guys, but I think the bus has already left the station. And, as I said before, this was originally driven by the gamers. It wasn't driven by Microsoft, it wasn't driven by Sony, certainly not in the early days. They just moved into a market that they saw was there for them. So we're not going to go back to seeing consoles that just offer games and only games. The reality is, with Microsoft, with Sony, with anyone else who's coming into this space now, in order for their console, for their product to be a viable product, they have to offer more than just games. It's a lucrative business and they want to make their little bit of money out of it. And why shouldn't they, let's be honest? And frankly, as a gamer and as somebody who uses multimedia devices, I don't have a problem with it, apart from, as I say, some of the issues that come with it. I did talk to Sully on his video the other day. He did a video about whether he should buy a PS4 Pro or whether he should buy an Xbox One S. And one of the issues that came up was the Xbox One S offered a UHD Blu-ray player, whereas the PlayStation 4 Pro offered, well, 4K-ish gaming. And he was umming and ahhing because he would like to have a UHD player as well. And I would always say to anybody who's in that position, if you can afford it, get yourself a dedicated player. Don't use a console for Blu-ray and stuff like that because they're never going to be as good as a dedicated player. But that's just an aside. But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you think that consoles should only be about gaming? Are they only about gaming for you? Do you not bother with watching multimedia on there? Do you never watch Twitch? Do you never watch YouTube? Or are you like me? Do you think that this is something that these consoles have kind of moved into because that's what we wanted? It's a market space that they saw was open to them. As always, if you agree with me, give us a thumbs up. If you disagree with me, you can give us a thumbs down, or even better, come in the comments and we'll discuss it. And in the meantime, you know what I'm going to say? I'm off to have a cup of tea. And I will speak to you guys again soon. Bye.